Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Coffee. Without it, we would never have had the Industrial Revolution. We'd all be still living in Europe in mud huts. Here in Laredo, we have the Organic Man Coffee Trike. 4501 McPherson, the best coffee on the planet. If you can't get to Laredo, you can order from the organicmancoffeetrike.shop. And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Tonight, I am going to be talking about paranormal things going on in Ghana. I was looking at my stats once more, and I saw that the folks in Ghana are listening to the show. The really weird thing is I have more listeners in Ghana than in the United States and Canada combined. This got me to wondering how a country in Africa could have so many people all speaking English. I was surprised to learn the official language of Ghana is English. I had assumed, and you know what that means, they spoke something else. We have the British to thank for this. Looking into things going on over there, I noticed there's a lot of paranormal activity in their country. The first Europeans to reach the Gold Coast were the Portuguese, who landed at Elmina in 1471 and established a permanent presence there within a decade. The Portuguese initiated the gold trade out of Elmina, but by the end of the 16th century they were facing competition from the Dutch, the Danish, and the English. The Dutch captured Elmina and assumed control of the gold trade in 1637. By this time, the slave trade was entrenched elsewhere in Africa, but slave ships were discouraged from operating along the Gold Coast due to its importance as a source of about 10% of Europe's gold. When the English captured Cape Coast Castle, just east of Elmina, in 1664, the balance shifted again. Unable to wrest control of the gold trade from the Dutch neighbors, the English decided to undermine it by instituting a market for slaves out of Cape Coast. By 1700, the gold trade had been driven into a terminal decline. One Dutch official bemoaned the fact that the Gold Coast had become a virtual slave coast. It would remain that way for the next 150 years. Today, Cape Coast Castle lies at the heart of Ghana's tourist industry, a neatly whitewashed hulk that towers handsomely above the surrounding coastline. Lots of tourists go there to look around and see this ancient edifice. Inside, they'll notice that there are a lot of slave trappings. The building had been remodeled and added to in the 17th century, allowing for 5,000 slaves to be held there. Over a period of 3 centuries, an estimated 20 million African captives were shipped across the Atlantic. Perhaps twice that many may have been killed, but there's no way of knowing. Those that didn't want to be slaves, or those that were just too sick or young or old, well, bad things happened. There are those that think the United States invented slavery. These are the same folks who don't read the Bible. A lot of people living today think slavery is a thing of the past, eliminated during the American Civil War. I was going to just call it the Civil War until I remembered a lot of countries have had civil wars, and, well, now that my show is international, it got to be a little more specific. About 31 million people live in Ghana. Texas has almost 30 million. But then Texas is 3 times as big as Ghana. We have a lot of land only occupied by rattlesnakes and coyotes. When we go on a trip, it takes us an entire day to reach the Texas border, unless we go into Mexico, which is 3 blocks. This is more than just a state. Texas is more like its own country. A lot of people living in the United States hate hearing about how great my state is, so I'm not going to mention it. Ghana is one of the largest cocoa producers in the world, and they have a lot of gold. In Ghana, they have a school system like the one in England. Boarding schools are common. Having kids away from home sounds like a good idea to me as long as they're being taught and not indoctrinated. In some of the schools, kids have seen spirits. In 2013, a boy was away at a boarding school. I'm going to call him Charles. The school was in a good-sized town, so in the evening Charles would sneak out and run around. The idea of boarding school was to teach kids discipline as well as an education. To make matters worse, the boarding school was in his hometown, so the kid was used to getting in trouble were close at hand. Any time he could, Charles would contact his buddies, and they would swing by and pick him up, or they would meet at some location. They weren't acting like Alex in A Clockwork Orange, but they were acting like kids. Watching movies their folks didn't approve of, playing video games, eating the wrong kinds of food, kid stuff. One of his best friends, let's go with Daniel, lived right on the edge of a Christmas tree farm. People in Ghana celebrate Christmas from the 20th of December to the first week in January, and they have a lot of different activities. Many people travel to their relatives and friends in other parts of the country. There are a lot of different languages spoken in Ghana, and all of these different groups have their own traditions and customs. Daniel's home was surrounded by Christmas trees. They even had their own soccer field. The place was attractive during the daytime, but as the sun went down, the place took on a different feel. It was more like strolling through a graveyard than a tree farm. Charles would sneak home on occasion, any time his folks were out of town, so he didn't have to sleep at the school. Boarding schools are, well, not that great if you're living in them. You've got one big room with maybe a dozen kids all in it. This was working out great until his dad came home from a business trip unexpectedly and found his son was not at the school where he was supposed to be. Not liking the dorm room, Charles began spending some nights at Daniel's house. No chance of running into his own folks there. Daniel's uncle would cover for them any time they needed an alibi. He was the crazy uncle everybody should have growing up. One evening, as Charles was approaching the house, he noticed the lights were not on. It was late evening and getting dark. Charles knocked on the door anyway, and the uncle opened the door. The uncle told him the family was out of town for the week. Charles talked to the uncle for a few minutes, and then he decided to head back to school. He walked through what was now a spooky tree farm. A few weeks went by before Charles could speak out again. Sneak out again. He met up with Daniel, and they ran around a bit. Finally, the subject of Daniel's trip came up, and Charles mentioned talking to the uncle. Daniel wanted to know when exactly had Charles talked to his uncle. Charles said it was the same time they had been out of town. Daniel said this was impossible. His uncle had died several weeks before they had taken the trip. Charles knew exactly when he had talked to the uncle because it was only a few weeks ago. They both agreed he'd had an encounter with the ghost of the uncle. The ghost had looked just like a real live person. It sounded normal, and nothing about the encounter was odd, other than the fact the uncle was dead. A juju is a spiritual belief system incorporating objects, such as amulets and spells, used in religious practice in West Africa, especially in Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon. The term has been applied to traditional African religions. In a general sense, the term juju can be used to refer to magical properties dealing with good luck or bad. July 3rd, 2018. A group of students were going about their daily schedule. They were at the Nungua Senior High School in Accra. I believe that's how it's pronounced, ACCRA. Nothing out of the ordinary was going on until 20 of them collapsed at the same time. School officials called for ambulances and anybody who could transport the afflicted kids. They were taken to the Lekma Hospital. Medics did all the things that take place during an emergency. Blood tests were called for, and the fire department went into the school trying to figure out what had caused all these students to collapse at one time. As the kids began to recover, they became confused. Few of them were hysterical. Doctors mostly said this was just a form of mass hysteria. Why so many passed out was unclear, but they reassured everybody there was nothing to worry about. The students had a different story to tell. Some of them said they had seen spirits in the school. These had been ghosts of fellow classmates who had died. Others saw shadowy images they couldn't identify. The hospital called in a few psychologists to talk to the students. Being highly educated people, they didn't want to say there might be something unexplainable going on. The term mass hysteria was passed around a lot. Speaking off the record, it was admitted there may have been some bad juju going on in the school. Perhaps these kids were all playing around with objects or items with evil spirits attached. One of the doctors in charge of the students' care said, "They rushed to the emergency room with some behaving abnormally. But we found out that most of them were suffering from hysteria. They said they had seen things, some seeing ghosts, some seeing other students who had died. We can't work with that as clinicians, so we have managed them. They are currently very stable, and they are waiting to see clinical psychologists. We've seen close to 18 students, and we are observing 3 others. By the end of the day, we'll hand them over to the school authorities who are still here." The authorities tried to find an explanation for the students' collapse. They wanted to focus on psychological reasons and avoid anything paranormal. Unofficially, anything that might have caused the students' difficulty was looked into. This was not the first time a group of students had an outbreak of an unknown cause. In 1999, at a high school in Umtata, Eastern Cape, South Africa, A few female students collapsed during morning prayer. They were taken to the staff room where they all recovered. None of them could say why they had passed out. A few days later, also during morning prayer, students began screaming and crying. This was followed by some falling to the floor and going into convulsions. The unexplainable outbreak spread to 50 students. The students not afflicted began running away to avoid becoming possessed by whatever was attacking the other girls. Eventually, the staff were able to carry or drag the students out of the building. They were all transported to the closest hospital. Doctors and nurses could find no medical reason for the outbreak. This led to folks saying there had been evil spirits present in the school. Many believed there was a group of Satanists who had sent some demons into the school to attack the girls there. February 2000, about 1,430 students, particularly girls, at a school in Manguang. I pronounced that name several times before the show. Mangaung. And in the Free State province of South Africa, presented with mass itching of unknown origin. This incident started at the school, with students reporting severe itching as soon as they entered the building. This sensation was almost exclusive to just being inside the property. As the students were being examined, those involved began to itch as well. Soon, students, staff, and medical personnel were all scratching at unknown infestations. When no explanation could be found, people in the area began to avoid having any contact with the students. Cab drivers refused to let them in their vehicles. Neighbors kept their kids away. Even some family members kept the students with the unknown itch isolated from the rest of the family. Witchcraft, poisoning, and insect bites were proposed as causes of this strange behavior. Experts who investigated these possibilities excluded any identifiable cause. This leaves only unidentifiable and unknown reasons for this bizarre outbreak. A very similar event took place in Tanzania in 2008, when a group of girls all rapidly fell unconscious during school. Some have likened these attacks to the Salem witch trials that were started when a group of young girls began seeing and feeling things that led to the townsfolk being rounded up, tortured, and many of them hung. October 16th, 2019, a bunch of students were studying at one of the Ghana high schools when a spirit suddenly appeared in their midst. The apparition caused the students to run in all directions in fear and panic. One student jumped out a window, injuring her leg. Others managed to escape through doorways and run down the hallways. Their panic was enough to lead to physical problems that had to be treated at the hospital. The students were questioned separately, and they all had the same basic story. In all, there were over 20 young girls treated for various injuries and symptoms. The police moved in and tried to get to the bottom of things. All the witnesses said a ghost had appeared in the middle of the room. It was human-shaped, but see-through. No one had stuck around to see if anything was going to happen after that. The police could find no evidence of what might have caused the girls to collapse in such a way. Panic. The only suspect was the spirit, and, well, they couldn't find it or question it. The following day, another group of students all passed out at almost the same time. No one was injured, so these kids were not transported to the hospital. They all recovered with no explanation for their behavior. Later that night, several of the band members went on a rampage, tipping over trash cans and breaking windows. These girls said they had no idea why they did what they had done. When students began throwing rocks at the headmistress's house, the school was closed until authorities could get things sorted out. Nothing was ever found that could have caused all of this bizarre behavior. Most people wanted to blame mass hysteria as the one and only cause. The girls who did see or hear something all said it was spirits or witchcraft. Way back when I was a firefighter, we had a rash of suicides in some of the schools. Every day for several weeks we had a kid kill themselves. One day there were no reports of a death, but the next day there were 2 kids killing themselves. The one and only survivor, he had taken poison but was rushed to the hospital in time, said he, along with all of the others, were all into some form of Satan worship, and they were sacrificing themselves. He also said they had all known each other, and they had coordinated their efforts to please the Dark Lord. The authorities claimed he was just making excuses, and there was nothing to see in the form of occult activity. They also said the kids were not acquainted with each other. Some people just don't want to believe there might be something out there we don't understand and can't control. They would rather blame the victims than admit spirits are around us, and some of them are not very nice. At another boarding school in Ghana, this one was in the country, the students all believed there was something not right at the school. There were stories of ghosts seen in the buildings and weird sounds at night. The buildings were all haunted, but the woods might have been cursed. There was something out there that would attack anyone foolish enough to venture into the woods. In the daytime it was dangerous, but at night it was death, or worse. Oh, you know how kids talk. No one could ever say bad things had happened to them or anyone they knew. It was a friend of a friend who had had an encounter. With no actual victims to name, the kids all thought these were mostly just legends. In 2012, something happened that led to the kids believing there might be something to all of those stories. The school was in a wooded area surrounded with trees. In the daytime it looked imposing, but at night the woods became terrifying. The kids would dare each other to walk through the woods alone at night, but nobody was ever brave enough to try. We all know that one guy. Some call them courageous, while others call them foolhardy. They're the ones who will do things that usually lead to a trip to the hospital. Some folks say that I am that guy. At the boarding school, as the students were telling stories about ghosts and shadow beings, one young man said he wasn't afraid of the woods. He was going to prove there was nothing to fear out there. He was going to show just how brave he was. With just about every student watching, late one night, the brave young fool slipped out the door and walked to the tree line. He acted as if there was nothing to be afraid of. The others were impressed by how he was willing to take on what was hiding in the dark. Did you see the movie The Village? Lucius Hunt, played by Joaquin Phoenix, was admired by all the kids because he was able to stand with his back to the woods for several seconds. It was kind of like that. The young man stepped out of sight, vanishing into the dark. The witnesses all strained to see what was going to happen. The lack of anything going on lasted for about an hour. Screaming was heard coming from the area where the brave boy had last been seen. The screams were cut short. No one was willing to go see what was happening. It went from terrifying yells to dead silence. The school security was called. The students told them about the guy who went into the woods. 8 security guards went to look for him. It took them a while, but the boy was found. He was curled up in a ball, unconscious. They carried him back to the school. Once he regained consciousness, the young boy wouldn't talk. He acted as if he didn't know any of the other students or staff. Eventually, the boy was sent to the hospital and from there to a long-term care facility. He never recovered, and he never spoke again. The kids that had been there that night passed on a warning to the others to stay out of the woods, especially at night. Ghana also has its share of UFO sightings. November 10th, 2005, a witness spotted a bright glowing ball of light in the sky over Accra, the capital of Ghana. At first it was orange, but it slowly changed to green. The witness watched the light, thinking it might be a meteor coming down. The light was getting closer, and eventually it took on a cigar shape. The craft was bright green, almost emerald-colored. The witness tried to tell others to look up at the UFO, but he found he was so excited he was unable to speak. The UFO was visible for about 5 seconds, and it looked like it was at about 5,000 feet. It was big enough for several huge airplanes to fit inside it. The craft was heading south out over the ocean. After seeing this flying craft, the witness sent a report to Newfork, who are doing the Air Force's job since 1969, the National UFO Reporting Center. May 11th, 2011 at 5:30 a.m., 3 UFOs were seen over Ghana. The witness was able to use his cell phone to record the craft as they flew towards the east just before sunup. March 3rd, 2020, at around 3:30 or 4 p.m., there was another craft spotted over Accra. The witness spotted a tube-shaped craft out over the ocean, south of the city. The craft looked as if it were tumbling or rotating as it moved. It split into 2 craft, one slightly smaller than the other. The smaller craft took off, flying northwest, heading towards Abidjan. As the smaller craft was passing over the coast, it vanished. The larger of the 2 then followed the smaller one, also vanishing as it came to the coast. This witness made a report to MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. 72% of the folks in Ghana are Christian. There are quite a few other religions, and then there are some folks that worship things that the rest of us consider wrong. Satan worship or devil worship is found in just about every part of the world. A lot of kids think it's neat or exciting to dabble in devil worship. The upside-down crosses and questionable jewelry. Most of them are just posers, acting up to impress others or to bother their parents. At some point in just about every kid's life, they discover their parents don't know anything and rebellion takes place. Usually this is short-lived, ending as suddenly as it begins. Then there are some folks that actually are Satanists. Those folks I ran into that night down along the river. People like that. Those who advertise their bizarre behavior are usually just acting. A Satan worshiper from Ghana claims to have sacrificed 675 people. At first, I looked at this guy as just being a show-off, wanting attention and not ever really doing anything. Then, as I was looking into the story, it took on a bit more weight. The man posted his exploits on the web, saying he was a Satan worshiper with many followers. He said he grew up worshiping the Dark Lord. His folks had gotten him into it at an early age. Satan is also known as the father of lies. A worshiper of this being would tell lies as well. So, is this guy lying about his sacrifices, or is he bragging to his followers? It could be he's vastly enhancing his actions. Maybe he did kill a few people and is only saying there had been 675. The more I read, the more I got to thinking. He might be a real murderer, but maybe not quite as prolific as he was saying. People think human sacrifice, and they picture a guy holding a huge knife over somebody stretched out on an altar. A sacrifice can be anyone who is killed with the intent of pleasing an entity. The Satan worshiper said he killed 675 people over a 17-year period. This would be almost one every week. Pedro Lopez from Colombia confessed to murdering around 300 young girls. He isn't sure of the exact number. Luis the Beast Garavito was also a Colombian serial killer who said he murdered around 400 people. Even he doesn't know for sure. He lost count. Our Satanist from Ghana is probably exaggerating. He says he mostly preyed on children, taking them when he could. The father of lies would probably create more lies. The long and the short of this is, there are Satan worshippers in just about every country on earth. Some are dangerous. The best thing to do is acknowledge they are there and stay away from them. Also, teach your kids to know the difference between good and evil. Don't ignore those signs your kids are looking into the wrong things. The devil's greatest accomplishment was getting people to think he isn't real. On a happier note, Ghana is now the capital of the Church of Jesus Christ on earth. Apostle Kofi Nakasa Sarkodie, the general overseer of the Open Arms Ministry, a Jesus Chapel in Kumasi, says he has been called by God, chosen by the Lord Jesus Christ to be his servant, an apostle, and sent by the Holy Spirit to preach and teach the truth, absolutely the truth, and nothing but the truth. I wonder if we could get him to visit the U.S. and do something about Washington. I'm always surprised by folks who say demons aren't real. They say the devil has no real power, yet they profess to believe in God. Yep, the devil did a real good job convincing people he isn't real. There are cryptids in Ghana as well. I didn't find any reports of Bigfoot. They do have reports of shapeshifters. I know some folks will say a shapeshifter isn't a cryptid. Until we know what a cryptid is, we can't say what it isn't. There are reports of creatures that look like half man, half duck seen in the country. A police officer is supposed to have caught one in a net. The duck man was tangled in the net, and then it changed into a small man. No one took any photographs of the creature, saying, "You can't photograph a cryptid while it's in its animal form." Once the duck had transformed into a man, there's no report on what had happened to him afterwards. There are also reports of a creature that looked like a pig attacking farm animals. The creature would kill and then eat only the internal organs. There would be a small hole poked through the skin. The dead animal would be hollowed out. When the farmers saw the pig attacking their animals, they chased it away. The pig then turned into a human. Once in human form, the creature began chasing the farmers back to their homes. One witness saw the man turning into a pig before attacking his livestock, and he took a shot at it. The pig man was hit by one of the rounds. It stopped attacking, raised up on its hind feet. Wings appeared on its back, and it flew away. A pig man that flies? More than likely a creature that can take on many forms, including that of a man. There are some who think, oh, those people in Africa are all superstitious. They believe in weird things. Well, there are some folks who believe politicians are telling the truth and that drugs are good for you. Just because people live in a different country doesn't mean that they don't know what's going on. There are reports of strange creatures here in the United States that can transform from one thing to another, so why can't there be the same in Africa? In Afifi, a man was attacked by a flying creature that turned into a pig. It then turned into a man. The police were called and the small man was taken into custody. There's no report of what happened to him or it. The Ewe people, E-W-E, in Ghana tell tales of the Ads, which is a vampire-like cryptid that attacks people and animals, kills them, and eats their organs. The description of the Ads is odd. They say it looks like a firefly or other small insect. It could also be invisible. The bugs might just be there out of coincidence. Some bugs are attracted to blood. If a man turns into a vampire that we can't see, it could be mistaken as small bugs that are buzzing around the wound site. The whole problem of what happens to all of the mass of a person turning into a bug makes it a bit of a problem for me. Only if it turns into a huge cloud of bugs would turning into an insect work. You've got all the rest of that body that you've got to do something with. The important thing to remember is the vampire either sucks the blood from its victims or it eats the internal organs. The Ads is a type of vampire creature told in the legends of the Ewe people of southern Togo, who turns itself into a firefly or other insect to feed before returning to its human form. They can transform themselves into any number of common insects which are seemingly harmless and very difficult to capture. In other stories, the Ads have a taste only for the blood of the innocent. They are hunters of children, and only children, and they especially like to feed on infants. They can also feed on palm oil and coconut water, and often will raid a village's entire supply of these, but they become dangerously weak if they do not feed on blood. An Ads can sustain itself without needing to kill children. It can take just enough blood to survive. If the adze is deterred or thwarted from feeding for too long of a period of time, it will go on a ravenous frenzy, feeding on anyone and everyone and sucking them dry until they're dead. Often, when the vampire reaches this stage of hunger, even the victims who survive become infected with a deadly disease which eventually kills them. Those who don't die may turn into either a vampire or a witch. The adze can also have the power to possess a human and become a living vampire. When the adze is captured, it will revert to its human form. A human sorcerer can willingly become possessed by the adze spirit for the abilities and powers that they will gain. As an adze host, they are able to change their form like a shapeshifter, from human to something else using their magic. If and when they are captured, the magic will be lost and they will revert back to their human form. This is the only way to destroy the adze. Catching them is the trick. There's no way to protect against the adze. You can't use holy water or a cross. Nothing will keep them out or keep children safe from an attack. The only thing you can do is to capture them and destroy them once they regain their human form. Another vampire-type creature from Ghana is the Sasabansum. This creature is a flying humanoid that attacks other humans. Sculptures and images of the Sasabansum depict it as a humanoid creature with a bearded human face, long hair, a pair of either horns or pointed ears, a skinny body with protruding ribs, short forelimbs connected to a pair of thin membranes that resemble a bat's wings, and very long, twisted legs. A witness to the Sasabansum said the creature he saw resembled the carvings closely. It stood over 6 feet tall and had a wingspan of 20 feet. There were long, pointed teeth extending from its mouth. The skin was the skin was white with black spots. The witness also said the creature had scaly ridges over its eyes like eyebrows. It had hair that stuck out in all directions, almost like spikes on its head. Depending on the region, some Sasabansum attack people and drink their blood. Others say they will kill and eat anyone they encounter. There are stories of a Sasabansum being killed while it slept. It was found in a tree, and the hunter tried to capture it. Instead, the creature was injured, leading to its death. The body was taken into town and shown to the district commissioner, who had the creature displayed and photographed. The photo and the body have been lost over time. Ghana also has some legends that are well worth looking into. The mystic stone at Larabanga holds incredible power, and it's located in a village in northern region of Ghana. This stone is located within a few minutes walking distance from Larabanga Mosque, which is touted as the oldest mosque in West Africa, as well as the oldest in Ghana. The Larabanga people will tell the legend of how the founder of the town was passing through the area and he decided to spend the night. Men back then were spiritually active, and they would not do anything without consulting their deity, whichever one they believed in. His deity ordered him to throw his spear and to use the landing place as his resting ground. It is believed that the position of the stones is where he stood when he threw the spear. The stone is mostly noted for its ability to return to its original position when it is moved. It has returned to its original position twice after it was moved to make way for a road construction. Finally, the road was diverted to go around the rock since it refused to be moved. It is also believed to have powers to heal or to curse. An 18-inch high, 24-inch long, and 12-inch wide stool made of pure gold is so sacred that it is never allowed to touch the ground, and nobody is to sit in it. It is the royal and divine throne of the Ashanti people and is believed to house the spirit of Ashanti Nation. The Ashanti are part of the Akan ethnic group and are native to the Ashanti region of modern-day Ghana. A Twi, TWI, is spoken by over 9 million Ashanti people as either their first or second language. All chiefs have a symbolic replica of the stool, and not many of them have seen the original. Only the king and a trusted advisor know where it's been hidden. Legend has it that the gold stool descended from the sky during chanting of one of their great traditional priests. It landed on the lap of the first Ashanti king, Osi Tutu, which he used to unify the people in the 17th century. Ghana isn't the only country with a magic stool or throne. England has the Stone of Scone, which is mounted in the base of a throne. Any time a new ruler is being crowned, they have to sit on the Stone of Scone in order to be christened. If you read Terry Pratchett books, you will read about something called the Scone of Stone. It's a piece of bread that they bake that is so hard nobody can eat it. Well, that's Terry Pratchett for you. He was one of my favorite writers. Kente cloth is a type of silk and cotton fabric made of interwoven cloth strips and is native to the Akan ethnic group. It is a royal and sacred cloth, and it was worn only by kings during special occasions and festivities. This cloth used to be woven by only men because they believed that women's menstrual cycle could interfere with its production. The cloth's legend dates back to 375 years in a small city called Bonwire in the Ashanti Kingdom. Two brothers went hunting one afternoon and they found a spider weaving an amazing web. They observed the details and mechanics of the web, returned home and then recreated it. They successfully made their first cloth using black and white fibers from the raffia tree. Paga, Ghana, is about as far north as you can get and still be in the country. Any farther and you'll be in Mali. Paga Crocodile Pond is a sacred pond in the Upper East region of Ghana, which is inhabited by West African crocodiles. Due to the friendliness of the reptiles, it has become a popular tourist location, and the pond is now reliant on tourism to ensure the population of crocodiles remain fed and healthy. The legend of the origins of the pond say a crocodile brought a dying man to the pond to drink. Once he was healthy enough to travel, he declared the pond to be sacred and that no harm should come to the crocodiles. This legend is said to date back about 600 years. The crocodiles are considered to be the totems for the local people. Another story says a man was trapped against the water's edge by a lion. In a last-ditch effort to survive, the man bargained with a crocodile that none of his children would harm his kind if the crocodile would kill the lion. It is believed that the souls of the people of Paga reside in these crocodiles. It is an offense to kill crocodiles in Paga or to eat crocodile meat. These crocodiles are very friendly. Visitors can sit, touch, and take photographs with them or on them. They roam freely about the pond and are brought to the shore when the guides whistle loudly. Tourists can then take photographs while holding the crocodile's tail or only after the guide has fed them. There are concerns that the pond is now too reliant on tourism, with caretakers saying that in 2009, the elderly crocodiles require specialist care, and the only time additional food is provided to the reptiles is when tourists pay for the food that they are given so they can get photographs. There are literally hundreds of photographs of people standing or sitting on crocodiles. None of these people are missing any parts. The crocs seem to be friendly. Now, what is going on in this one location that causes deadly creatures to not kill and eat the people around them? Cebu is right on the coast of Ghana. Legend says the region was founded by a giant by the same name. Cebu Amanfi was a general in the Egyptian army. He was taller than anyone else in the area, maybe 8 to 10 feet tall, and he possessed magical powers. When the Israelites were allowed to leave Egypt, followed by Pharaoh changing his mind and sending the army after them, Cebu was the man in charge of the army. Cebu pursued the Israelites to the edge of the Red Sea. When Moses, using the power of God, parted the water and then led his people across to freedom, Cebu came charging in after them. The sea came crashing back down, killing the entire Egyptian army. Having failed in his mission and fearing the Pharaoh's wrath, Cebu took his family and fled west. Southwest, actually. When at long last he came to the African coast, Cebu Amanfi created the kingdom of Cebu. Being a giant, he was well respected and feared by anyone living there before he arrived. All around the area are huge handprints indented into the rocks. These are the places Cebu had placed his hand with such force the rock was imprinted. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show, my little visit to Ghana. I am impressed by some of their legends and stories. If you live in Ghana and you want to pass on a story of your own, you can contact me at strangethings@arcanasa.com. That's ARCANASA. If you live anywhere else on the planet, well, it's the same address. Send me your stories if you've got anything of interest, as long as it's a true story, and I'll see about putting it in my next book. Don't forget to visit TeePublic and check out my t-shirts and stuff. Show off your listening preference. Let people know I'm out there and you can find my show interesting. My books can all be found at Amazon.com. Think of it this way. By buying a t-shirt or a book, you're helping me put this show out each week because, believe it or not, putting out a free show actually costs a few bucks. Till next Saturday, this is Chris James for Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder 3. Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?